Sound like go. I'll call this meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of the Board of Directors of the Bolinas Community Public Utility District. 3 directors are present. Directors Godino and Walker are absent. Today is.
I'm here.
Oh, excuse me.
I'm assuming.
Director Godino is present by Zoom.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize this other. Sorry.
Yeah, I didn't see that either.
Technical difficulty. I forgot about this other computer.
Okay. Hi, Grace.
Hi there.
How do I share screen, mirror the screen over on the other?
It should already be set up to do that. Maybe you have to press, is it turned on?
Yeah.
Just press the button underneath, in the middle underneath. Oh, sorry, just
Yeah, I think.
plug it in. Make sure it's plugged
Unless
in.
something must have gotten unplugged. Sorry, guys.
That's okay.
It should plug in below.
Yeah, it's plugged in. It's apparently plugged in.
Okay, press the button on the right front of the thing.
Yeah, I pressed the power button. It doesn't seem to be.
Oh, there we go. There we go. Coming.
Is it coming?
Yeah, well, at least something showed on the. There we
You
go.
just have to,
We got it. We're good.
Cool.
okay.
Let's get rid of this.
Okay. Now we have members of the audience. In person as well. All right, are we ready to keep going?
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's okay. Today is July the 17th, 2024. And with that, we'll move on to community expression, an opportunity for members of the audience to address the board on matters which are not on the agenda and for which we can take no action, but are willing to entertain a relatively brief discussion on the subject that you'd like us to talk about. Is there anybody who has a community expression item?
Me.
David, fire away.
Some of these things are on the agenda, some of them aren't. But anyway, I'm not a member of the Bolinas Eucalyptus Project, but I'm an outsider, and so I think I can say things that they wouldn't want to say or feel nervous saying. I just want to thank you people for doing what we do, because it seems like a thankless job. I would never want to do it. Okay, so overall, it appears to me that there's some coordination lacking that I think is leading to a lot of things being repeated or that sort of thing. I would like the BCPUD to take charge rather than merely responding to the issues regarding the Zone 5 eucalyptus. So first, the subject of the bike path. The bike path project, you and the BEP have both hired WRA to prepare a biological site assessment. Essentially about the same tract of land. So WRA appears to be making off like bandits, getting money from both groups. Even though the respective final reports are going to be about the same. I already know that the WRA report for BEP takes in a whole bunch of verbiage from all the other reports they've done over the years. And I imagine it'll all turn up in the BCPUD's final report as well. But anyway, it's costing both BEP and BCPUD about the same amount of money to do the same thing. Okay, the second item is also concerning the bike path, is that the bike path, which was once a great idea, is a pipe dream. To think that it's going to be developed without a bunch of trees being taken down. So DEP, hired some. Certified foresters who all concluded that these trees are gonna continue to fall. And the trees have been showing that they are correct. So without getting rid of these trees, BCPUD, it seems to me, is going to be forever announcing to the public, use at your own risk. And that seems to be the conclusion of the reports that DEP has gotten from the foresters. Third, it appears that both groups, BCPUD and DEP, may be required to contract for archaeological assessments. Owing to the disturbance that dealing with the bike path and dealing with all the down trees will be causing to the soil in the area. And that's despite the fact that Mother Nature is already tearing up the area. But no one is like mitigating from Mother Nature's action. But I think you will be required for this archaeological work as is going to be BCPUD. So is that another example of what's going to be double billing? So fourth, the WRA report to DEP was insufficient. It required them to hire consultants for forestry assessment and monarch assessment, which costs a lot of money. And so will BCPUD be needing to do the same thing? That is a outlying question. Fifth, according to last week's Point Reyes Light, BCPUD is paying a lot of money to play around with the well at the resource recovery site. In a way, with a purpose of ensuring that there's more water available in the future. What seems to possibly to be is being ignored is the fact that this youth growth is sapping up a huge amount of water that would be able to get down to where where at least the resource recovery well is located. So it's a question of spending all this money to improve that well while all these trees are sapping up all the water. If you look on the web for something like eucalyptus transpiration, you will be blown away by all the research that has been done over the years all over the world by all the water that eucalyptus trees take from the ground and dramatically alter the hydrology of a location. And even problematic is just the 17 huge ukes that are growing in the ephemeral stream that is feeding down into the area where the resource recovery well is located. And that ephemeral stream is only ephemeral at its surface. It is continuing to flow as we sit here, subsurface. But again, these eucalyptus trees are using up that flow. And so I think that you folks should be considering that, particularly as the bike path crosses that ephemeral stream. And should be a big deal made in the report from WRA about their meeting mitigation for messing up that ephemeral stream. If I'm making any sense here. Finally, there are, of course, a lot of ukes in the slope above the ephemeral stream. And with rising sea level, there's going to be more salt intrusion into that aquifer. And so it seems to me that some people should be thinking of taking down a lot of eucalyptus in preparation for rising sea level. In the best of all worlds, I think BCPUD should be thanking BEP for what BEP has done so far. As essentially, I think this zone 5 is BPUD's problem. For the reasons I have laid out. And so I think with a bit of more coordination, some of these juggling balls can be consolidated and more proactively, and the problem can be more satisfactorily accomplished. So anyway, that's what I have to say.
Okay. Thank you. Well, first I'll point out that there are in fact several action items on the agenda on this very subject, okay, under special reports or updates. So items, 16 and 17 in particular have to do with eucalyptus project and the bike path. So we will be discussing that later.
Yeah, unfortunately, both of those, the bike path, I sent you guys an email telling you that I'm gonna, because I ran into some questions, some of which are related actually to some of the points that Dave was bringing up. I want to really address those questions and be able to, present a complete package to you guys in August. And then the Beck folks actually requested to also be moved to August.
Okay,
Yeah, and sorry, both of those things
Okay.
occurred after we had posted our agenda, so.
all right, so we'll consider what you're saying as part of the discussion that we're gonna have in August, obviously on the agenda items. But I would ask Georgia right now, having heard what David said, do you have any general thoughts about what he sees as duplicative efforts being made here?
Yeah, and thank you, Dave. Dave also relayed much of what he just talked about in an email to me, and I did respond to you. I hope you saw that response. It's something that I've already thought about and talked to WRA about, and that is one of the things I want to address with them prior to coming back to you. Basically, I'm obviously the bike path really predates my coming on, and so I was just kind of getting up to speed around what was the original proposal. It is quite complicated because I think that some of the work that was related to the bike path also got kind of folded into what was the Marin Water project, which was related to harvesting fallen trees or whatever, the root system for salmon habitat, which I'm sure you guys remember. So anyways, teasing all of that apart has been really difficult. But I totally agree that it doesn't make sense to, and at some level they're not, they already have pre-existing plant inventories that have been assessed in the area, and so they don't have to do that work again, even though they're effectively, rehashing it for a complete report, and just making sure that we're really, not wasting taxpayer dollars when when we commission these reports. So yeah, and I actually already talked to members of BEP about this as well, and appreciate Dave that sent me the WRA's final report today. So it will be really nice to have that in hand when I talk to WRA about, okay, the original proposal around the bike path work, and with what has already been done for both us and BEP, how much more do we really need in the way of work from them to prepare the complete biological site assessment that will have to be accompanying our coastal development application. So, yeah.
Can I address this a little bit? My understanding and remembrance of these two projects and why we commissioned WRA for both is the two projects are different projects. They're the bike path is a small slice of the property, whereas Zone 5 is obviously much bigger. We're looking at a much bigger project to take down all the trees. So two reports are necessary. There is some value to hiring the same firm to do both. I think that was inherent in us deciding to go with WRA, is that we could get some economic value in having them do both reports. That's how I remember it.
Yeah, and sorry to just dovetail on what you're saying, Kevin, that's really, I mean, I didn't make that distinction, but it's important to understand that these biological site assessments, they obviously, as the term says, assess the property or whatever the region of interest. But then they have to look at that project with that site within the project that you're proposing. Obviously, you know, removing the entire grove is entirely different than refurbishing the existing path, is different than if you were harvesting for the, you know, marine water project. But again, a lot of that preliminary work in terms of, you know, identifying species, et cetera, like all of that site assessment, you know, obviously the scope can expand if you're expanding the region, but a lot of it is overlapping, and it makes sense, yeah, again, to have the same firm do that, but again, to just, you know, do your due diligence to make sure that they're not
Wasting money.
yeah, wasting money.
No, certainly don't want them to waste time or money, and I'll keep this brief because I think we should maybe move on, but and I'm not trying to be defensive here, I'm just addressing some of your questions. You seem to suggest, and maybe I misunderstood, but that the studies that we're performing as if we're doing them by choice or, you know, because we want to, but every study that has been commissioned is a requirement by the county to apply for these permits, so it's not like we're
Yeah, I
choosing
know.
to doing, okay, I just
I
want to
work
make
for a
that.
consulting firm. I
Sorry?
know.
Okay, I just want to make that clear, because it seemed like you were sort of implying that we did this because we wanted to or something, but like the archaeological assessment is, I don't know if it's actually a requirement, but if it is, we'll do one, but we probably won't do one if it's not, so I just wanted to make that clear, so sorry if I
Okay, well, the
misunderstood.
key here is the trees that line the bike path are 150 feet tall. They're going to be falling, and they're going to be falling on the bike path. And the bike path proposal was submitted before the last 2 winters, when push really came to shove. And so the scene has changed, I think, pretty dramatically. And so my main message is I think there needs to be, I mean, BCPUD is liable for any damage to anybody or any property. And these trees are 150 feet tall, and they're falling across the bike path, as well as other places. And so I'm just thinking that there could be more coordination between BEP and BCPUD. Rather than.
I don't think you know the full story, that we are in touch with BEP all
I
the
know,
time,
I
and
know.
that they're, I don't know if I can say this, I think I can, they're imminently applying to the county for permits, they've assembled their permit package, we have voted to support this package, so I don't know what sort of coordination you would like to see beyond what we're doing, but again, I don't want to get too much in the weeds. I'll maybe say one more thing about the resource recovery well that we are trying to add as a supplemental water source. It's already pumping, I believe, every night or many times a week to supply the water for the ball fields at Mesa Park. So it's already a well that's in existence and has been operating for many years, I believe. So I just want to make sure you knew that. I'm not sure if you were aware of that.
I'm definitely aware, but
Okay.
I'm just saying that the future of that well and its use has a lot to do with the growth of trees that are in its watershed. And so
Yeah.
it's these different items are.
Intertwined.
all
Sure.
interrelated, yeah. So I would suggest that, it's obvious that these are subjects that we are addressing and we're on the agenda for action and we're gonna put it over for 1 month, but we're definitely addressing them all. So why don't we do that at the next meeting? George, I'll have a lot more information for us and can answer some of your questions and you know, we're trying to be efficient as we can, but we've got to dot i's and cross t's for the county in order to get the trees down, but I think you're kind of preaching to the choir about the need to get rid of them, so we're in favor of getting it done, and I don't think we're being completely reactive, we're also trying to be proactive, but we're trying to follow guidelines that we've been given, so we don't know much more to say, and I think since these are gonna be agenda items anyhow, I'm gonna cut it off for a community expression anyway. But
Yeah.
thank you for, you know,
I would say one more thing, that I am grateful to BEP for the building this project, and I express that every time we meet. In here in public meetings and also when we meet them, you know, on the side, so I do express that to them, you know, every time we meet. So, you know, I just wanted to address that part of your comments as well.
All right.
Yeah.
So thank you on that. And are there any other community expression items from members of the audience, whether on Zoom or in person? All right, none appearing then. On the agenda, we have to have approval of the open session agenda. So does the board approve the agenda that's before us?
I so move, yeah.
I think we intend to take that out, but sorry, it
Okay.
kind of was a vestige of you guys saying we don't need that, but.
No, okay, good. So that will move us on to discussion items. Number one is the manager's update. And the first item, I'm just gonna turn it over to you, Georgia, and then you can
Okay.
just take it from here.
I'm just struggling with my. Mouse is operating. Sorry.
Okay.
You guys, let me know if you can see that, and I'm
Yeah.
not really sure what is up with Bell's computer and why it is not maximized, but it seems like it's something related to the display that I don't want to mess around with, so.
Yeah, that's all right, I can see it.
Yeah.
I can see everything fine.
Okay. All right, it's just, yeah, the display for the directors, it was a little bit truncated, but anyway. Jack also has a copy in his binder if he can share too, if you guys are having trouble seeing. All right. Let me just. Okay, so just to go through our sure play. Okay, well, might have to get out of the slide view mode because the slides don't seem to be behaving, but you guys are all familiar with this now. And so I'm just going to talk about the rainfall through the end of June. So just to remind you, this is actually the end of the rainfall year. And so we've completed the full year. So at the end of June 2024, the district had received 35.09 inches of rain since July 1st, 2023, the beginning of the rain year, which was slightly above the average of 32.56 inches for that time of year. And that time of year here means for the entire year. This is the end of the rain year, and we unfortunately received no rain in June. And now you guys are gonna have to bear with me trying to get out of this. I'm not sure why my computer is misbehaving, but moving forward. Creek flows remain much higher than in recent drought years and continue to meet district demand. The average flows by the end of June were estimated at 165 to 133 gallons per day. This is below flows at the end of May, which obviously isn't surprising as we move into the summer, which were estimated at 207 to 38 gallons per day. And just kind of looking ahead, by the end of July, we were predicted to have 139, 226 gallons per day. And we have not had to divert from the wood rat reservoirs as of yet. And again, just to let you know, this is obviously a model based on, based on empirical data that Rob collected a long time ago to effectively develop this model, but because we the impoundments are still flowing, we don't have the ability to collect that empirical data until the flows decrease and we actually can measure distances of between the top of the impoundment and where the water level is below that to actually test the model. This is our estimation of the volume or water storage. So this is basically water storage in Wood Rat 1 and Wood Rat 2. Just to point out that while the reservoirs are effectively full, neither are spilling now. Okay, and moving on to water production and consumption in June. In June 2024, water production in the district averaged 91,427 gallons per day. And this is up from May production, which was at 77,801 gallons per day. And obviously this is because consumption was up. And water consumption in June averaged 89,430 gallons per day. And this equates to approximately 153 gallons per day per connection, like per meter. And this is up from May consumption, which would average 75,492 gallons per day, approximately 130 gallons per day per connection. And just to let you know, I kind of decided to do this hindsight. Okay, we're stopping June 30, but we can see now consumption increasing into July a lot. So even within the last couple of weeks. So it might be a situation now through the summer where it makes more sense to, especially for the production and consumption, go through to the day that I prepare the report. So that would be like last Friday. So we can really see that uptick. That's, just because those acute measures matter more when we are moving into summer. All right, this is the graph that I prepared for you guys last time with some additional data laid on top of it. We talked about this last time. So this is, but just to remind you and let the public know if they're not aware, this is essentially our quarterly, these bar graphs, these stacked bar graphs are our quarterly water meter reads across the district. And we do these in these regions. So what we call the back mesa, which is basically, over past Poplar, that region. We have the downtown area, which is pretty intuitive. And with the mid mesa, which is sort of, I guess, hand gestures that aren't really helping the people on Zoom, but over towards, Overlook and the rest of the mesa. So, and then, because we have these quarterly water meter reads, we have kind of this staggered meter reading. So as an example, June, which is where I started the data to align with the water year and all this other data that we were already looking at. So June, July, August at the back mesa is that brown, bottommost block. Okay, and so then as we move through the year, and this is as an example, it's first year here, the 2006-07 rain year, then we're looking at, as the year progresses, the cumulative quarterly water meter reads from all of these regions, adding up to the overall effective consumption. Okay, so that brings us all the way to 2023-24, which is obviously this year. And you can see, because we have to do these manual quarterly water meter reads, that's like quite a mouthful. I gotta figure out a different way to say that. But we haven't completed that data set yet. So once we do, then we'll have the last few little bars here adding up to what is the total consumption. But as I was pointing out before, I mean, effectively what this is relative to what you guys saw last time is just one more rectangle added to the bar. And you can see, as we were predicting, we're above consumption from last year. So if you compare like to like these bars, you can sort of predict where we're going to be. Okay, so then that brings us to, that's pretty much what you guys saw last time. And so now the data that was added on top of that, I was telling you guys that Jennifer thought it would be interesting to just put the historic rain data on top of this. So that's what this blue line is. And then obviously that's a totally different measure. So if you go over to the right-hand side, that's the y-axis that's indicating the rain in inches. I mean, to be honest, I wasn't getting a ton of information from that, except to say that, you know, maybe when you see like a low rain year here, consumption was down, which is good. I'd say and this is probably pretty intuitive and predictable. It's like, if it's a drought, then people are pretty conscientious about using less water, but they don't go like ape crazy if it's tons of rain. And in some ways, right, obviously, maybe people need to water their yards less and etc. So, but it was still interesting to go through that exercise, and I can obviously keep that on there, or if you guys, you know, kind of want to see it once, but don't want to see it every time, we can remove it. And then the other thing that I wanted to, I talked to you guys about this, appreciating that I kind of misled you last time when I was talking about consumption. And that consumption number that I showed on the previous slide, I'm not going to go back there because my slides are having issues, but you know, that is consumption based on an estimate of water that effectively, it's like a small calculation that we do of water that we're sending to the town. And that obviously is a measure of, you know, or a kind of proportional to consumption in the town, but there is what we call unaccounted for water loss, which is essentially we send all that water to the town, but if there's a massive leak, then obviously that doesn't get to, you know, customer X, and we don't read it as a water meter read on the quarterly meter reads. And so that doesn't go in, you know, it doesn't factor it into the bar graph, but it does factor into that pink line. So essentially what I did here was just look at that consumption, what we call consumption data, but really is the water being sent to the town. And that's here, this pink line. And because that is a much more acute measure, we measure that daily. That's not, you know, that's June 30. You have all of the data here. So just to point out, you know, if you look at where we are right now, compared to, you know, the delta is effectively a measure of potentially of unaccounted for water loss. However, with the caveat that this data isn't, you know, complete yet. So it's making it look like there's a huge amount of unaccounted for water loss, but that's just because the pink line really reflects, you know, up to June 30 consumption, whereas this stacked bar graph is a couple months behind. Okay, yeah, so then, you can see though, when a year is complete, basically what this unaccounted for water loss looks like. And so I played around with the data a little bit, and it looked like it's, you know, around 10%. You know, it can fluctuate a little bit, but what was actually appeared less variable, and Jennifer, I think, intimated this to you guys, or has kind of noted this pattern before, which is that it looks like it's more a sustained absolute amount of water loss generally. Again, there's a lot of, you know, this is very general, but that there's an absolute amount of water loss. So if you look at a year where there's a lot of consumption, effectively the percent of unaccounted for water loss is low. So if that makes sense, because basically you're getting the same absolute amount of water loss every year. And again, same in, you know, big quotes with a big grain of salt. So you have the same unaccounted for water loss, but consumption is high. So that same amount over the total is a lower percentage. And, you know, I think she was always, Jennifer was like always miffed at this a little bit, but I think it actually makes quite a bit of sense if that unaccounted for water loss is effectively, you know, leaks throughout the system, and you just have the system pressurized at a certain amount. And that's kind of where the system works well, and, you know, based on gravity, etc. And then you lose that amount. And so the amount that's being drawn out doesn't necessarily impact that, you know, the amount of loss that happens over, say, a 24-hour period in the system as a whole. So anyways, I use that average amount of water loss to effectively model back where we didn't have, at least, I mean, I probably could dig this data up somewhere, but basically that's the green line. So I just like kind of track that back, assuming that, so the green is basically modeled, whereas the pink is real data. Okay, so I mean, again, you know, this is still a work in progress, and I urge you guys to keep throwing ideas out there, and we can continue to spitball about what is, you know, how we want display this kind of data in the future. But I think it's helpful, and I think I mean, I don't know to what extent you could ever say in a year, be like, whoa, what's going on with our unaccounted for water loss, you know, where it would just, I mean, that's kind of something that we probably see on an acute basis anyways. And anything that would bear out, you know, where it's like kind of macro enough that we would see it here, like hopefully we would be on it enough to be dealing with whatever kind of, you know, leak that would be.
Mhm.
But maybe you could see things like, you know, if we, I mean, again, I don't necessarily have that data here, but this idea of like, oh, okay, you know, our water meters are this old. Well, you know, I mean, one of the ways I talked about it in the most intuitive way of water losses being leaks, but the other way that we've talked about it, right, is that as meters age and they less accurately account for water, that tends to go in the direction of undercounting. So that would also look like water loss effectively through the same measure. So maybe something like, oh, you know, we imagine, because we have to at some point replace all of these aging meters, and we kind of do it so that it's sort of all of them have been replaced at once, and we started to see these long-term trends of like, oh, it's going up, that maybe that would be a reflection of that theory of how meters behave over time. Anyway, so nothing really to like pull from this specifically, but kind of more general patterns.
Yeah, thanks for doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
Yep.
Very easy to read.
Yes.
Okay, so that brings me out of the water supply memo to meetings attended. So very kindly, Supervisor Rodoni reached out to me and requested that we have quarterly meetings to just get on the same page. And I had one of these on July 1st with his aides, Fernando Barreto and Morgan Patton. And basically I just, you know, I think it was really an opportunity for me to come to them, where they didn't have like a pre-agendized material. And so essentially what I did was just, you know, prepare an agenda that was all of the projects in which I'm interfacing with the county in a kind of major way. And so that would include the Wharf Road seawall repair project, which you guys have heard about, the Surfers Overlook seawall repair project, which I've only kind of peripherally been involved with at this point. This is and the downtown residential parking permit program, the Bolinas bike path repair project, and county permitting associated with that project, and the well project and county permitting around that. And then we also, you know, talked about some other things that just came up, but it was really helpful. And it also, I think, is an opportunity for them to start thinking about like who can help me be more efficient here in the work that I have to do. And so I just received an email today from Sarah Jones, who is the director at you know, the CDA, and she arranged, you know, asked if we could have a meeting on Friday. So, and that was basically, I think, you know, Morgan had after this meeting and me saying that I really want, you know, kind of more streamlining related to county permitting, and just kind of having the opportunity to talk directly to CDA in furtherance of that. So that was really helpful, and I really appreciate Morgan Patton. I think she was the real driver of that, and it's really kind of thoughtful.
Did you get any particular feedback on any of these subjects that was encouraging or discouraging of the 5 that you listed here?
Not particularly. I was kind of bringing it more to their attention. We didn't like delve into the nitty-gritty because honestly, you know, they're only kind of peripherally involved, and it's more like, you know, essentially telling them, for as an example, you know, the well project county permitting has been incredibly expensive. And, you know, I want the opportunity to be able to provide feedback to the county to let them know that I think that a lot of that was inefficient and wasteful and not a good use of taxpayer dollars effectively. You know, and it's not like they can necessarily modify that, but it's exactly that, where they're like, we totally understand what you're talking about and, you know, and we appreciate that feedback. And you should talk to Sarah Jones about your experience. And so
Okay.
that's kind of, you know, I think how it's hopefully gonna work is just basically they're there to help kind of grease the wheels. And I really felt like very supported by the interaction, so.
Good,
Could I say something?
yeah,
The county of Monterey County got their supervisor to get them $1 million to get rid of eucalyptus trees. So since this eucalyptus problem here is BCPUD's problem, I hope that you could whisper in Radoni's ear, get him interested.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, it's unavoidable even at the county, you know, everyone's aware of this eucalyptus grove. At least everyone I talked to at the county, and even in this meeting, you know, they were asking me about it, in the context both of the bike path and, you know, just more generally. But yeah,
Yeah, so the state has money. In that article I read, it was the supervisor in Monterey County that got this money from the state.
For wildfire prevention projects or?
Public safety,
yeah.
Yeah, should ask about it.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. All right, continue.
Okay, and I just wanted to update you guys on the Alliance of Coastal Marin Villages, which I also had on that July 1st. This is just to remind you, this kind of network of different representatives across West Marin of villages on the coast, as the name implies. And this particular meeting was essentially a representative of Point Reyes Station Village Association. Fighting. You know, requesting the alliance to write a letter effectively supporting their appeal of the project to rebuild effectively the gas station building up there. It was a little bit complicated. I mean, in one, just to let you guys know, I mean, effectively, I go to those meetings and I'm obviously representing the BCPUD in those meetings. So I'm very careful to, you know, say that essentially I can bring this back to the board, unless it's like very clearly something that wouldn't be contentious at all. You know, then I could sort of get on board if it's like, let's make sure we're cleaning up trash in Marin, or, you know, or in the coast as an example. Not something where effectively I feel like, okay, I can make an executive decision here and, you know, help write a letter and sign on as a representing the board. This to me felt like, you know, while I could have potentially personally supported it, and they were making compelling arguments for why, you know, this appeal, it was not something where I felt comfortable, and the timing didn't work out for me to bring this to you guys and be able to sign on. But I did want to let you guys know because, again, as a representative, I think they were really appealing to the BCPUD board, really, you know, to see your kind of interest in, you know, essentially supporting them in this appeal process. So
Did any of the other attendees representing other communities have a different perspective?
they not as far as not supporting the project, or just in line of whether they were willing to support the to sign on to a letter. I mean, just to be clear, often what our work is like we come to an agreement, hey, there is total consensus and let's write a letter on item X, and we'll all sign on. And basically, if we don't get that consensus, then we don't. And we can, as you know, write a letter, but not as the Alliance of Coastal Marin Villages, but just, you know, effectively write a letter, and some percentage of the individual you know, representatives can sign that letter, you know, as a kind of proportional, like, expression of proportional support. But we really only like use our title of the Alliance of Coastal Marine Villages when there's total consensus. So there were at this meeting, there were people that were in effectively my camp where they're like, I can't, you know, and generally I would say those are people that are in similar positions to me where they're effectively, you know, a hired person who's representing a district, as opposed to an individual member, say, representing a community group. You know, I think they're just kind of, you know, we have to be a little bit more careful, maybe. And so, yeah, so that was what happened here. It was effectively, we didn't feel like we had consensus to sign on to this. But again, I felt like it's important to bring this matter to your guys' plate, and that's essentially, I'm not going to read this, but this was the email that he you know, shared with us, and that I'm sharing with you. And yeah,
Okay,
So does
but if you guys have any questions,
the BPUD as a member of Alliance of Coastal Marine Villages like get involved only when it is a decision or an issue that impacts our district, or is it just broader West Marin?
well, it could be like this, you know, because so essentially, I think that the birth of this was during the pandemic, and it was like overrunning of essentially support systems out here by visitors, and there was like a lot of trash building up and stuff like that. And so it was kind of like each district was dealing with this issue, but it was shared among everyone. However, there are situations like this where it's like, hey, we're dealing with this issue, and you may not be dealing with this issue like right now, but you could be dealing with something like very similar to this, either, you know, previously or in the future. And so it behooves us to basically, you know, kind of show our alliance and say this is an issue that impacts us all, you know, theoretically, you know, even if it's not in yeah. So that's, you know, so one of the ways in which this conversation was going was around community plans, like, hey, this approval by the county for this particular project has really not if you look at the project as described, it is not in line with our community plan. And so, you know, if you want the county to support your community plans, which, you know, the LCP says, you know, if you look at it, it has like Bolinas, Dillon Beach, blah, 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 you know, like describes the, you know, community plans in kind of rough sketch so that it, the LCP conforms, you know, at some level to those community plans. So that was kind of why they were appealing to us. It was just like, it wasn't, you know, again, it was kind of on this, there's also the project itself involves expanding housing in the back of the there. And I mean, granted, they the representative Ken, who provides the email on the next page, he said that it's really not a very, you know, everyone in Point Reyes, apparently, he said 100% of people were not in support of the project. But to me, it just feels, you know, I know that there are differing opinions on housing developments, and to me that's kind of a red flag, and I didn't feel like, without coming to you guys with it and getting, you know, full feedback as to whether you wanted me to go back and support that, I would feel comfortable doing that on my own. So, and as an example, one of the things that the Alliance has talked about where there was really no consensus at all was like short-term rentals, right? Because we have representatives from Stinson and Dillon Beach, where, you know, that's a huge part of the culture and nature of those towns is second, you know, or what am I trying to say? Short-term rentals. Yeah, so that was something that, you know, we all like immediately understood that's not something we're all going to sign on to, right? So anyway, okay, and another meeting I attended was around the SB 1383. This I'm sure you've heard Jennifer talk about. This is the new state legislation that requires every jurisdiction to supply organic waste collection services to all residents and businesses. And I'm sure just as a resident, you like saw that transition, right? Where essentially it was like, okay, now start putting all your food scraps in your green waste bin. That is the impact of SB 1383. And so we essentially, you know, with Jennifer's extremely hard work over the last, I think, almost year, she was attempting to get this low population waiver, because essentially we have, you know, and just to remind the public, if there is public, basically we have we are the franchisee with Sonoma Marin, what is it, Recology?
Ecology.
And so we were essentially getting roped into, if we hadn't gotten this waiver, to be in compliance with overseeing that. So you know, there was essentially, if you didn't get this waiver, you would have to do like auditing, where you were literally going around to people's waste bins and making sure that they weren't putting food waste in the garbage, which is obviously, I mean, not something anybody really wants to do, but not something that we even have the bandwidth to do, should we have had we wanted to. Anyway, so a while ago, I think even Jennifer kind of spearheaded this group, and then you know, since then, Garrett Toy of the Tamaulipas Community Service District, that's him right here, he really took this on and then secured a grant to help us manage all of that. In that time, we, or Jennifer, there was like, she was effectively pointing out some problems with the legislation that then the state corrected through another law, and that then allowed us to actually you know, be able to be approved for the waiver. And so that's what's happened, but we still potentially, even though we're like, it's not exactly clear if we have any reporting or other auditing associated with it, even though we've been granted the waiver. So it's very nice to have the support of this consulting group that will help us manage and navigate that regulatory framework.
Sorry, just to clarify something, we are still beholden to this law. Bolinas residents still have to put their food in the green waste bin. That's not in question. The question is more about enforcement, and does BCPUD need to enforce this with residents? That is what we got the waiver for, but Bolinas residents still are supposed to put our food waste in the green bin.
Yeah, and I don't even think it's enforcement, because I'm not even sure to what extent we would be enforcing it. I think maybe we kind of report it when there's like somebody who's like a scofflaw, like, okay, but I think we actually, I'm not even sure, I think that goes to some part of Cal Recycle. You know, it gets like moved up a chain of command. Like, I don't think we were like gonna be going to people's houses, and, you know, even if we didn't get the waiver, I think it's more all of this reporting around like the amount, and then in, you know, essentially auditing and making sure that people are doing it. Like there's a whole host of data collection that you would have to do. And hopefully, I mean, one of the things that we talked about in this meeting is, you know, we essentially have a waiver for like 5 years. Is it a situation where we're likely to have to comply after that 5 years, and should we just use this time and this resource of having these consultants on hand to just kind of like get our ducks in order should we have to comply? But again, also I think there's other aspects to the law that we may still need to comply with, and just kind of understanding exactly what we need to do and just doing it. Interestingly, I would say just kind of more broadly around the franchisee, our franchise contract, or what am I trying to say?
Agreement,
Yeah, with Recology. It was very interesting. At one point, one of the, you know, because these are all kind of small districts, not as small as ours, but still like a single individual like running a waste, you know, as a waste provider. And a lot of them, or sorry, one of them expressed this, you know, this is kind of the tipping point. And is it really worth it for us to be the franchisee with whoever was, their partnering solid waste collector? And, we're considering going to the county and seeing if we can get under their umbrella. And once that person expressed it, all of these other people expressed it. And as you know, we've also, I at least put it very much in this context, especially if this regulation associated with SB 1383 becomes, very cumbersome. I think that kind of just like tips you toward, hey, somebody else can deal with this. This is not worth, the small amount of money we take in to be the franchisee or the control that we have as the, franchisee. So that was kind of interesting to hear the like-mindedness on that issue.
Good stuff.
Okay, so that moves us to an operations update, the well project update. We continue to work with consulting engineer Alan Richards to get these projects designed. The resource recovery well design and build appears very straightforward, and we're effectively moving forward with that. The 31 wharf well design and build is more complicated. So we had a meeting with Habitat for Humanity on July 10th, who has taken over the design and build of the 31 wharf building project. And they informed us that we cannot finalize our design until they finalize their project design in December 2024. So there's an issue with extending that, which is basically our project is grant funded and we have a window, which essentially would be December 31. So it was kind of, I would say, an unfortunate meeting, and I'm basically kind of troubleshooting and thinking about ways around this, including going back to BCLT and seeing to what extent, we can continue with our project, even if theirs hasn't been designed. Because really, at some level, that news was really, really impractical for our schedule. And there was never an indication that that was the case. But, I appreciate the fact that that project really went from being under the control of BCLT to Habitat. And so that brought in a whole new design team. And, I understand that the project is not going to change tremendously, but I think they were a little anxious about, hey, we're just going to dig under your project before it's built and lay down some infrastructure. But anyway, so
Sorry to interrupt. Who owns that property? Is it still BCLT?
yeah, BCLT, and effectively, that's all still in the works as far as I could tell from these conversations. Is it's not fully, they're still, I think, working out their agreements, but the idea is that they have licensed over the development to Habitat.
Okay, so I guess it's too late to make that transition conditional on BPUD putting in our well before that transition happens. That's already,
Yeah.
done and gone, so.
Yeah, I feel like it's a little bit premature for me to speculate. These are all things that I'm kind of speculating behind the scenes and thinking about, okay, what are all of these paths forward for this project? And so I will definitely, come back and continue to report on this as that moves forward, but I'm not quite ready to talk about it publicly yet, I would say.
Okay.
Okay. This is just a quick update on our Azola situation. There is a photo of the reservoir. You can see that it doesn't look very watery. And aquatic resource management, you guys approved this through an emergency resolution, and so we scheduled them to come out from July 23rd to 25th to remove the Azola. So I will let you know how that goes. So I think I said this here, this was a little unfortunate in terms of essentially this relocation of our water main on Wharf Road. I just had a meeting today that probably, would have informed this slide a lot more. But basically that meeting went well. I know that I've been really kind of back and forth on this, and should we pursue this as our own project? Should we pursue it as a bid alt for their project? Their project effectively, I feel, and have been told, I mean, it's already slowed down and it's behind schedule. And so essentially what we talked about today, was just having these triggers that move our project forward. And we will, you know, my path forward right now for this is essentially we pursue it as our own project, but we really only, you know, go out for bid when we essentially get the go signal from them. And kind of working with them and requesting them to essentially really work with us around that schedule. So essentially, once we get that go signal, we have enough time to, you know, under a quick timeline to get ours out to bid, get our project built, and then have them, you know, and be out of there before they start their project. So it seems a little less scary than the last time I talked to you guys in terms of, you know, I've obviously met with lawyers and talked a lot with the county since the last time I talked to you. And so a lot of my perspective on it has shifted a lot, and I just feel like I don't want to move forward like crazy when I feel like their project might, you know, not happen this year. I just feel like just to calm down about it and just, you know, I think it was kind of a little scary to hear them tell us at first. And I think as their project slowed down, then they became more sympathetic to, it wasn't really reasonable to just kind of make us do this for no really good reason.
How about the issue of paying for the paving if we're gonna?
Yeah, so we have agreements like that, and they were, you know, very not conciliatory, but rational about it makes no sense to hold us to these paving standards when they were gonna just have to repave immediately. So we have some very simple things that need to be captured in language that will be easy to capture, which is basically we don't have to, we can just what is called plug pave, which you know, is not up to the county standards, is a much less expensive, and we won't have to pay for an encroachment fee. So those are kind of like the verbal agreements that, you know, make the project a lot cheaper. And so that's all good. What we have are kind of more what I would consider like existential issues around Wharf Road that make me nervous. Yeah, they're really very cooperative in helping, you know, kind of coming to an agreement about how do we capture some of those further complexities. So I think that co-op, you know, that's kind of the same thing where I'm hoping that that co-op agreement and a real like hashing it out between the two sides in terms of, okay, let's invest a lot of time in this co-op agreement. I would like that to be initiated through one of these like go signals too. So essentially we, you know, have, okay, project is definitely moving forward this year. And then we can be like, okay, let's sit down and really hash out this agreement. But we already have had several conversations, at least from my perspective, me relaying to them, hey, this is a concern of mine. This is a concern of mine. Again, they're pretty complex, and to what degree they're willing to, you know, concede some kind of like, you know, acceptance of risk associated with those things. I'm not sure. Obviously, that will be hashed out if and when we have to really write the co-op agreement.
And do you feel that these kind of triggers or go signals help you and us feel better about the scenario we talked about of us doing the work and then the project never happens, and then we spend all this money and time investing in this project that we didn't want to do in the first place?
Yeah.
Do you think
So some of it is definitely around that, so it mitigates that risk, right? Because those go signals are presumably they're not guarantees that the project moves forward, because obviously we need to leave enough time. But they're things like, okay, we go out to advertise our project. I mean, again, we haven't fully just agreed on what those go signals will be, but they mitigate some of that risk. And then yeah, so that's definitely true. But along the lines of these more existential, complex things, it's like I would still want language in there, and I think they're think that it's totally reasonable to have language in there that says okay, we've mitigated that risk, but let's say you still don't get your project going. We want we want to be reimbursed if you don't complete your project within, X number of months or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, great. Yeah, that's good.
and I swear those are always really longer than I expect them to be, but that's it.
What do you say, Andrew?
I said I'm not surprised if they're behind schedule.
It seemed unrealistic from the first day, didn't it? Yeah, I know. Okay, does that include your manager's,
Yeah, that concludes my manager's report.
all right. Number two, public hearings, receipts and notices. It's, we write none on the agenda. I wanted to bring one thing up, which is, I noticed that you put into the hearsay after the June meeting that the BPUD's elections are coming up, and the window, for the time to sign up as a candidate's opened on July the 15th, I believe, which is a couple days ago. And closes on the 9th unless one of the incumbents doesn't sign up, and then there's another 5 days or something. So I think you should put that in the hearsay again.
Yeah, we have it on for repeated.
Oh, good.
I mean, Bell already sent that out and asked them, put it on this date, that date. I mean, I think it basically runs for the duration of the window.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, I just want to, because the public needs to know that
Yep.
one. Okay. Item 3, special reports or updates. There's none. Potential for committee updates. Item 4, resource recovery committee. Anything that?
Yeah, nothing. And just to kind of let you guys know, I was hoping this would be a little bit intuitive, but basically what I've decided to do is, I think we talked about having them on here so that we can kind of reminds us what committees we have and if we want to reorganize them, or if there's something that you guys want to ask me, direct me to kind of work around a particular thing related to a committee. But where we've prepared material where we'd be sharing that, I bolded the one, so you can see this time around. I'm going to talk about the resident permit parking plan committee and the building committee. Andrew, maybe we'll talk about the building committee, but yeah, so.
Do we still need to have a resource recovery committee?
I think that we should probably revamp that. I don't know. I think that its committee makeup is not very useful right now for the aims of that, but there's a ton of work related to resource recovery. I cannot believe the amount of time that Bell spends on effectively management of that site. And it really, I mean, again, it's just like kind of like lists of things that we need to attend to. I'd say that's pretty high on the list of priorities. So, the last I heard, that resource recovery committee didn't have board members on it, didn't have BCPUD staff, I don't even think. So I don't think it's whatever iteration it was is not very useful for the work that I'm talking about. But I definitely think that, I wouldn't recommend we scrap that for the purpose that I was just talking about of keeping it front of mind. And like just the way we're talking about it right now is like, let's revisit the makeup of that committee. I mean, again, like I literally don't even know who's on it.
I don't think we have a committee of board members, for instance. It's not one of our committees. And that was originally put together to have a cooperative agreement among several agencies, the fire station and people in Stinson Beach. And but it doesn't seem like that is the way it's working. It seems like the BPUD is pretty much running the show. And now with Mike Aiken not being there anymore, and Bell is sort of a semi-general manager of resource recovery, for lack of a better phrase. And I think we should reevaluate what the relationship is between the BPUD office and resource recovery. I don't think it's any longer a volunteer committee,
Yeah.
It's something else. I'm not sure. It's become a project of the BPUD, obviously, primarily because it's on our land. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it makes sense to have a representative from BPUD, either a board member or a staff member on that committee, but.
But what is the committee? In other words,
Well, I think we should reach out to the other stakeholders, so Williams Fire, Stinson Fire, Stinson Water Department, maybe whoever was originally involved, and say, are you still interested in this, in being a part of this?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it serves, you know, the whole of our little slice of the world, so.
But one of the problems I think we've discovered, not discovered, that's come up is now with this new regulation that food scraps are supposed to go now green waste. So now resource recovery is no longer collecting that
Mhm.
stuff, and so those communities may not have as much of an interest in being part of it anymore.
Okay.
And maybe it's just us,
Well, maybe we
collecting.
could scale.
Well,
it
I
back.
definitely think that both fire jurisdictions are very interested. I mean, I haven't personally spoken to Stinson about it, but I know that, George, we've met with him several times, and we often, I would say that while we're more into the day-to-day operations, George also has a lot of kind of responsibilities. I mean, the front loader down there is a equipment that they own that just, had major repairs that, they needed to pay for. So it's like, it's essentially, while we are taking on a lot of the burden of running the site, the fire district here in Bolinas is also very, as part of the fire fuel reduction, it's really important to maintain the site. But I do think that, the economics of it have probably changed too, since Recology is not using the site anymore. I don't actually know how the budget was impacted by that, but these are all kinds of, very important questions to resolve. I think that last time, and I mean, I feel like this is just sort of the nature of having too much work at the district, where I'm just gonna like continually apologize for like bringing stuff up, but then, never addressing it, or not never, but slowly addressing it. But basically, I think last time we talked about this, I said, we're not ready for you guys like at this meeting here to decide what the makeup of that committee would be. I would say, let us internally go and reach out to those various agencies and come back to you and have it on as its own, agendized, probably extract it from, resource recovery volunteer committee, because that committee doesn't really exist.
Yeah.
And put it on as like, a special item that we're really addressing, and we can come up with some, be presenting some potential kind of solutions for how we kind of try to rein in the site and all of the work associated
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah.
I think a big part of it is honestly bringing in more revenue and paying somebody to manage the site. Like you're saying, Mike Aiken basically did run the site effectively as a volunteer.
Yes.
And now he's gone. And so that's why, essentially it's is probably always underfunded, and it might have less funding than it used to. And so I think the balance sheet, if we really looked at it, is pretty out of whack right now in terms of what is the amount of labor that really goes into running that site, and how much revenue is it bringing in, because the idea is really that it should pay for itself. It's not something that is supposed to be funded by our water customers, which effectively, if Bella's having to do all of this work related to it, that's really what's happening.
Okay.
Is that a joint powers agreement like Mesa Park?
I'm gonna say goodbye. I've got to go to work. Sorry, everybody.
All right, Grace.
Nice.
And Georgia, you're still screen sharing. I don't know if you know that or
Oh,
not.
sorry.
All right. Thank you. Goodbye. I will listen to the recording. Bye-bye.
Bye, Grace.
Bye, Grace.
Yeah. I don't think it's a joint powers agreement as formal as that.
Okay.
I think it was just put together, but because several of the basic premises for putting that coalition together are gone, which is the nature of what's going in there and the lack of resource recovery contributing anything, and Mike not being there, we should just really take a look at how that whole place, is run moving forward from here.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And now, and Bell being elevated to a higher position, maybe we can take more responsibility as part of her job description. Sorry about that, Bell.
Yeah.
But
No, I mean,
That's okay.
yeah, that's already something that she did, and actually, if you guys remember her job description, that was
Yeah.
expressly
I do,
within her
right.
job
I
description.
guess what I'm suggesting is that, maybe we should just call it what it is, which is an operation that's run out of our office with Bell sort of being the ringleader and no longer considered to be a volunteer committee. It's just one of the things that we do. It's a service to the community and it's done on our land and run out of our office. And you guys can create, a logistical plan for how it gets done, but
Mhm.
let's not call it a volunteer committee any report. Let's just call it more about what it's become.
Yeah, I think it's like you're saying, it's like an acknowledgement of how it's actually running.
Yeah,
But it's like, it's not running very well that way because it just kind of morphed into that as opposed to being well thought out about, okay, let's do it this way. Let's make sure we actually have enough revenue to support the,
Yeah.
site and it's the labor associated with the site and the equipment, et cetera. So,
yeah.
okay, well,
Okay.
I will try to put that on for next time and Bell
See where
will
we
work.
go. Okay.
Can I ask one more favor when you dig into this a little bit?
Mhm.
Was if you can figure out, maybe Jack, if resource recovery ever considered transitioning to be more of a food waste composting facility. I know there's an expense involved with that, but was that ever part of the discussion about resource recovery? Are you aware? Because when this whole SB 1383
Yeah.
bill came down the pipes, resource recovery must have realized that they're going to be losing a big chunk of revenue from Recology dropping off green bin. So was it ever considered to become that facility so that Recology wouldn't have to take it over?
Yeah, I think that it's a permitting issue and that we don't have, and that is quite a different, because for health and safety reasons.
Right,
to
like
have-
it would involve some upgrades to the resource recovery, but was it ever considered as?
I
I think
don't,
they looked at it and decided that the cost of trying to deal with bringing in food, because once you bring in food waste, it attracts rodents and all kinds of stuff, and it created a whole other level of supervision and control. That was more than our little operation could deal with,
yeah,
and it might have also even affected the fact that it's so close to an existing well.
yeah, I think there's a lot of issues related, to health and safety around. Even having a composting facility with like one of the things around setbacks related to that composting and the well, especially now that it becomes potable.
Yeah.
It's like we had to ensure, so I would
Yeah,
get.
also, I think there's a little seasonal stream right there
Yeah,
and
there's
it's too
probably-
close to that. There were so many little demons attached to it that we decided it wasn't gonna work. Because we thought about that too, because it is a loss of revenue.
Yeah, it'd be nice to keep that all local as well, not send it all over the hill.
Right. Yeah, we just,
Is there another part of BPUD land that could be used, like up by the sewer ponds? Is there?
yeah, it's quite a project to take on. I mean, we could think about it, but. Yeah,
I'd
the
say-
office has a lot of stuff on their plate
No,
right now.
I know,
so.
but just while we're talking about, one more thing about resource recovery, I noticed in today's hearsay, page 3. Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority has a free community green waste day in Bolinas, so they're the ones, I think the fire department does chipper days, but these guys also do chipper days where they come around and grab your branches that you lay out for them. So they're doing one at Resource Recovery where the public can bring in loads of branches for free. So I guess they're covering the I don't know how that works, but I was just thinking when I saw this that maybe we should do more of these if Marin Wildfire is interested, because I assume they're paying Resource Recovery for this, or I don't know what that structure is, but that's just another way we could potentially get a little more revenue coming in, is working with them. So
Yeah, probably Bell can speak to that better than I can. Bell, I mean, I saw emails around this from George about that, but I don't know what the revenue looks like.
I mean, we don't have to talk about it today, but just putting it, also on your radar, just to dig into.
Yeah, I think, no, we definitely get money and they did one back in June. We get some, it's good to get money from these chipper days and those types of things. The problem right now is that we're waiting to do a grind because there's so much material at the site. So we do these quarterly grinds, and we haven't done one actually since January, just because of the storms and being closed and all of that. And we were planning on them coming out on Monday to grind all the green waste that's down there, because it's getting pretty full. And Caltrans won't let them have a permit to bring the grinder down because of the work that's happening at the Y, which isn't even happening right now. So we've had this issue trying to get the grinder to the site to be able to grind the material so that we can bring more material in. So we're actually kind of, even though, we're hoping they'll be in by August and we can, clear that space out, I'm a little bit nervous about that deadline just because of this grinder issue. But George is also helping me with the fire department, try and make that happen. So
All right.
Okay,
it's always something.
Yes.
Yes,
thank you, Bill.
all right.
But they're great. It's a great thing if we can just kind of work around all the logistics of it. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, it is.
But I do think that's also like a point well taken. I think part of this, to me, part of it is really dealing with the revenue side and going out to the county or Marin Fire or whatever it is, the different fire jurisdictions, and really coming up with, maybe it's like they pay annual dues and then they have access to the site and the revenue becomes more kind of predictable. And just anyway, so again, I think, it's obviously, it's not even on our agenda really for tonight, but we'll definitely try to bring it back for August and have a more complete discussion around resource recovery.
Okay.
Okay, takes us to item 5, resident permit parking plan committee.
Yeah, so I think Sherry originally, when this agenda got posted, was thinking that there would be something to report. There really hasn't been, but just to let you know, we have a meeting tomorrow, effectively with county representatives. And that should, be informative, and I'll come back to you with, or Sherry will come back to you with a report in August.
Right. And item 6, the land stewardship committee.
Nope.
Nothing to report. Takes us to our ad hoc committee. And we're back to ecology. Detailed rate review committee. Where are we with that?
We have not done any work, but we need to.
Okay, I
Yeah.
think that's Kevin and I, as I recall, and Jeff Clapp.
Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah, I think we're hoping for that analysis of kind of what other jurisdictions are paying and
Yeah.
if we join the county, what we'd be paying, or at least an estimate. And then we'll get hopefully Jeff in here, and because we need to get back to ecology, right? Is that they're waiting for us to respond, I think?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes,
So yeah, maybe we could try to get a meeting on the books for
yeah,
late July or
Yeah.
early August.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, item 8, the bike path committee, anything other than what we've already been talking about?
no,
All right. Number 9, the building committee. I
Ye-
noticed in the binder.
yeah, so I mean, I can just briefly talk about it, Andrew, and then you can probably
Yeah.
take over.
Yeah,
Basically what you guys see in your materials are the 2 inspection reports that occurred. One was related to the yard and effectively the 2 buildings. The storage building and the workshop building, and those are, over here in the yard next to 270 Elm office that we're in right now, for the public that may not know that. So there's an inspection report associated with those, and then a second inspection report associated with the 101 Mesa, which is what we call the lab, which is that small, quaint building. Everybody refers to it as cute building that's right adjacent to the sewer ponds.
The handsome building.
Yes, so I mean, I don't know. The other thing that we have here at the end of these 2 inspection reports is basically after receiving those inspection reports, the building committee, which is Andrew and Kirsten and then myself, had a meeting, and so I just, after that meeting, prepared some notes. And that's what you see here. So I don't know, Andrew, if you want to highlight specific aspects of what we discussed, or.
Yeah, there's a lot of detail, but essentially the next step is to kind of break this down into a way to look at, like, you know, there's bats getting in, the rodents getting into certain buildings, like kind of immediate steps, steps for later, kind of an hour later, like the candy. And just to kind of get some reports, like a few more reports about like mold and asbestos and things like that, just so that we have them. And we're gonna need those reports to take further action on demolishing buildings. Like if these buildings have asbestos, for instance, we're gonna have to have these reports so that we can do it safely and mitigate. So it's a little bit more report gathering, and we're starting to like kind of organize the building program needs still. I've done a lot of that, and we're looking at other ways to format it, but there's kind of this prioritizing that needs to happen in terms of time, and then also we need to like take a closer look at how much these projects really are going to cost. And then, as you know, there's all these pieces, like plates spinning in the air of like, okay, well, if we were to convert that building, where does everything in it currently go? Where do the people go? Where does the equipment go? And so we're gonna need to like come up with the best strategy and get bids, and we'll probably end up having our contractor or maybe even an architect to do some of the things. But
Sorry, convert what building?
like these sheds are totally trashed, and the lab building potentially has the ability to like, potentially, I say this with a long way, but it could potentially like be an office, temporary office, or maybe a permanent office. And so there's just some staging of things that need to happen, I think. And there's some of these things need to have consultants look at the condition of some of the infrastructure, like plumbing and septic, and there's obviously the rodent control stuff. So
the lab building is a salvageable, potentially usable structure as opposed to a tear down?
the lab building probably needs some, well, definitely needs rodent control, and it probably needs to be tented for termites. But structurally, it's probably okay.
Okay,
And you know, maybe some like new windows or like some control, but yeah, it has potential.
okay. And then is there any kind of recommendation at all about what to do with the sheds that are just next door right here? Is that?
I mean, it was pretty much like tear down
Yeah,
situation.
it's pretty dire. I will say though, just having spent some time there, I think there are a few minor steps in terms of like drainage around them, and maybe repairing a little bit of siding that can give them a little bit more life, because we're not in a position to say like, okay, this winter we're gonna tear them down and rebuild them.
Yeah, I mean, they're utilized, all three structures are utilized, right now.
Yeah.
And so, I think, I still think that kind of the general plan of what I was thinking of seems doable. And this is sort of what I was expecting, or kind of almost best case scenario of what I was expecting to happen, which is, meaning you don't have to have any kind of expertise to look at the buildings next door and to think those do not look salvageable. I think what was kind of revealing from these is like one of the buildings is actually really structurally unsound. And so that, you would need an expert eye, or like I'm not capable of looking at the beams and knowing all of, that the weight bearing is all wrong there and stuff. But anyway, it's, kind of the 101 lab building appears like it's worth our effort, kind of immediate effort to address it and really kind of bring it back up to, livable, because essentially half of it, the rodent issue is really bad over there. And the bats in particular. But the idea being like, to me, this, like Andrew was saying, it's really getting your head around this list of priorities. And to me, there's, like Andrew was saying, the yard buildings are being used presently, and sort of what can a kind of minimal, without a ton of investment, what can we do, what little projects can we prioritize over in the yard to just make them, more kind of livable? And what, and then a lot of our eggs, so to speak, are going into the lab basket of, okay, let's really, tent de-rodent, and look at what we're, I mean, effectively, obviously, we are not gonna just like go ahead and do that. We wanna get informed by these reports that Andrew was talking about, but basically have those reports not only be like, you have rodent problems, obviously we know that already, but have them be more exhaustive reports that are really leading to a plan forward of, this is what we suggest you do, and essentially they're a guide, guiding documents that then allow us to effectively hire a contractor, and then they can go in and do the work to mitigate all of those issues. And then the idea is that basically it's like a stepping stone where, okay, now we've, again, this is obviously not like tomorrow, but we've refurbished and the lab building and whatever form that looks like, and all of it is usable, and we kind of all consolidate over there, and then maybe, refurbish the lab buildings and whatever that looks like, and do some potential like expansion or something like that, or just really get a sense of how much space do we need for our operations. That's kind of big picture how I'm thinking about it, is sort of whether it's like a long-term solution of, oh yeah, actually we just added this one storage facility and we're all over at the lab building and everything's great, versus no, we're super cramped, but at least, that's essentially serving the purpose of what the mobile was doing. But in the meantime, we've actually spent all of that money to refurbish like what is a major asset for the district.
So in other words, you refurbish that building so that it's usable, so all of it is usable basically. And then take your whole office operation that's on this building and move it over to there, and then this building would be vacant at that point and could be demolished and rebuilt or whatever.
Yeah, we have potential scenarios like that.
Yep.
Yeah, we basically have like inventories of what is the condition of it, how is it used, how is it ideally used, what are the problems, and I think our next step is like recommendations. right?
Okay.
Like, what are we gonna do?
Yeah,
What should we do?
yes,
And I think that's what we're fleshing out at the moment.
okay, good, all right. I'm
Yeah,
looking
so
for
it's
sort of
it's
a
a
game
lot.
plan.
Yeah, no, I know it's
There's
nebulous.
a lot of pieces,
I think
so I'm looking for.
Recommendations is the next
Yeah.
set of info that we're trying to fill in.
Okay,
And then within that is the priority matrix of like now, later,
yeah,
expensive,
right,
inexpensive.
right,
But just for instance, like over here in the yard, there's that kind of open air hangar.
yeah,
And there's like a beam that goes across the top, and there's siding that comes down. And there's about 2 feet, or not even 2 feet, that is just siding, it's not structural, that if we just had a handyman go up there and cut it in 4 hours, then we could back the loader in all the way,
oh,
and then the loader wouldn't get wet in the winter.
okay,
Or like at the lab building, we could have some door stops built so that the bats can't get in, and it would probably be like another 4-hour project. So it's kind of
okay,
identifying those as like, let's just pull the trigger and get this done, or the drainage, let's get this done before it rains.
yeah,
And then there's the bigger ones like we've talked about.
right,
So
okay, so there's the more immediate ones that are not as expensive, but don't take that long to do and provide some more immediate resolution. And then the big plan, the game plan.
yeah, the master plan.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
comprehensive
Got it,
feasibility plan.
Mhm.
okay, all right, well, I just wanted to know sort of where all of it was going.
Yeah. That's great. Exciting stuff, I would say.
Yeah, I mean,
Good-
it's super
good
slow
progress.
moving because obviously we have everything else for, I mean, I wish I could just attend to, the buildings, it would be great.
Yeah. No,
But
it's- yeah, yeah.
unfortunately, yeah, it's like a small snippet.
No, I would tell you that having been on this board for many years, that this has been the subject of discussion for
Oh, has
many,
it? Okay.
many years, and what are we gonna do with the lab building? And well, it's got rats and it's got bats and this and that.
Yeah.
And for a while, one of our employees was even living there, and you know, it's just been an ongoing discussion, and it was only when we finally said that this building has become so dangerous, basically, that the time has come to actually do something, so that's when we formed this committee, and I'm glad that you guys are doing what you're doing, but I realize that it,
Yeah, we're getting to the point where we're hoping to be able to present clear direction
yeah.
to the board and the public.
But some of the things you just brought out were really good, like for instance, if you just did a 4-hour carpentry job and you could put a piece of machinery out of the rain, things like that. That sounds pretty good.
Yeah,
You know.
sounds like good
Yeah.
value.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So-
Okay, can I ask one more question about the shed? Do you think it's worth looking at a replacement cost for a prefab shed?
I
'Cause I
think-
imagine that would be like a replace in kind, could be a somewhat fast thing to do. Do you think it's worth looking into that?
Yeah, I definitely think it's worth it. I mean, I think for me, the yard is just as like Andrew laid it out. It's sort of like these little things to mitigate some of the stuff, and then a long-term plan to me is probably, prefab. I think, those are decisions that, I mean, because one of the ways in which they don't need to be made immediately, right? It's like some of it is sort of, I just feel like appreciating how much infrastructure and how kind of, to be totally candid, how incapable we are of taking care of all of our infrastructure, whether it's all of our water lines and, just all of these capital improvement projects that are pretty overwhelming and we don't have the funding to do. It's like, it is in our interest to kind of think about, well, how big does our footprint need to be? Because it feels really expansive, really, with the treatment plant, the lab building, this building, the yard, and to what extent can we consolidate so some of the management around those properties feels more manageable. And so that's kind of where I'm like, if this kind of, I mean, it feels a little pipe dreamy right now, but if we really refurbish the lab and we get a sense of, okay, what is it like for all of us to be in this space? Maybe we figure out like, it feels really cramped, and what we want is like, either us to come back here and really readdress this whole kind of building, this sort of cooperative approach to this building where it's like a post op, anybody you tell about it is like, I know what should be there, whatever. There's that kind of broader plan that then we're sitting over in our kind of like not ideal cramped lab building while we hash out what that ultimately looks like. Or it's like, you know what, this is fine, it's a little cramped, and what we're gonna do is just replace both of or put in a long building, associated with the yard, and put in a portable over there so that they have, an office space or whatever. Anyways, I don't really know how that's gonna work, but I think that it's probably prudent to make that decision in an informed way once we kind of have consolidated and really get a sense of how much space do we actually need to run our operations. I feel that it's probably not all that much space.
Okay.
Yeah. Also, I think a lot of our discussion had to do with the fact that a lot of the space, I don't know how much of the space is used for storage of old documents.
Yes.
That's not an efficient use of that space. And there was a discussion of just trying, at some point, you just put it all on the computer and get rid of the paper, although that's a major task.
Yeah.
But the idea being that we're designing storage space for things that we may not even need to store,
Yeah.
and things like that.
Yeah.
So, all right, sounds good. Next thing on is Canyon Road Committee, excuse me.
Yeah, we don't have anything to report out on that, but that obviously that work is ongoing. I don't know if anybody wants to.
Okay, in item 11, Personnel Committee. I don't know if anything, is there a
Nothing.
advertisement out for the new position yet?
No, we had, I don't know if you guys know this, but we hired somebody part-time to come into the office. So we originally posted that position as part-time. And so not surprisingly, we got people that were interested in part-time positions. Really what we ultimately need here is a full-time, so we're gonna repost as a full-time position, but in the meantime, that person has been very helpful. They're just not here all that much.
Okay,
So,
and then how about to replace the field staff?
yeah, we haven't posted it yet, but yeah, our intention is to post those very soon.
Okay. Moving on to 12, Finance Committee,
Nothing to report.
okay, Operations Committee, number 13, anything?
Nope.
And number 14, Legal Committee, I don't think there's anything to report.
No.
Or you're just intending for the ones that are bolded to be the ones that have something to talk about, right?
Yeah, I mean, in future, Jack, I mean, I don't know, again, we can, I think. As you saw with Resource Recovery Committee, that prompted a whole discussion.
Yeah,
So I would leave it up to you guys as to how you wanna handle that, if you I just basically bolded it, so if you wanted to, you could just be like, okay, we have resident permit parking. Committee and a building, committee and.
yeah. I don't mind reading those other ones because as you just pointed out, sometimes it can generate a discussion that we hadn't planned on.
Absolutely. I think it's good to read them out.
Okay, and now we go into action items and then Georgia, I guess you can address the status of these matters, okay? I'll call
Okay.
item 16 first, which is Linus Eucalyptus Project. It's a request to put a fundraising sign on a district property at OB Road.
Yeah, so they, called us and requested this to go on there. They've since asked us to, after publishing of the agenda, asked us to retract it. To say that they were gonna, fold that request for signage into a broader report. A full report from BEP. So that would be on for August. I do think it would be in your interest to just, because we internally started to talk about that signage. And so maybe just like kind of percolate on that idea, because I do think they'll probably come back with that request.
Are you talking about the posts where the days without a post office? is?
Yeah, and it kind of brought up like, well, what is appropriate usage of that? Is that like a public space? I mean, I know that you guys have kind of been pretty diligent around not allowing people to just post everything there, so that there's real salience in terms of, bringing attention to something. But the post office sign has been up there for a really long time. Obviously, it's not, it's an interest of, I'm sure, all of us as residents, but as far as being, directly related to BCPUD operations, that's obviously not the case.
No.
And so, with the BEP project, as Dave was pointing out, that really is arguably very much under our purview. It's our land. We are dealing with those trees, And so, anyways, I just thought while it's on here, it kind of gives me the opportunity to bring this, because it is kind of a complicated issue about how you think about what the use of that, because it is really an opportune spot where everyone's coming in, and you could imagine what sort of precedent do you set by allowing certain groups to post there? Do you want to have really kind of definitive language that says no posting of any signage there versus no, we want to, address this issue by issue? Anyway, not to be discussed now, but just because it is more complicated, I thought it might be worth thinking about prior to their coming to the next meeting and requesting.
I think about this every time I drive by it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, I think we've generally tried to be pretty protective about how that space is used.
Yeah.
It's generally just been restricted to actual BPUD, like the most common one being this, we're short on water, so you gotta,
Yeah.
conserve or something like that. So this post office one is sort of an exception, because I can't think of anything other that's. sort
there's
of
like the no
under-
fireworks sign there.
Yeah,
There's like,
but that's always just sort of a temporary, anyway, it's a good.
yeah.
We don't look at that policy, okay,
Okay, the bike path.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, you can list it and I'll just,
no, go ahead.
yeah, just the bike path special report, just to let you know, I'll come back with that with a more thorough report, but. I'll address some of the issues that Dave brought up today, and really I just wanted to give like a thorough overview of the budget related to that project and kind of broad schedule for when we're hoping to pursue that work.
Okay. Then item 18 has to do with changing our regular meeting schedule, time and location. And we had decided to go to 6 o'clock at the firehouse.
Yeah.
And I think the board's already voted on that.
Yeah, I was just kind of
Yeah.
bringing it back because you guys were effectively requesting for it to be like, you know, obvious to the public.
Yeah,
So basically that will happen next time. Obviously, that will be on the new agenda, but we'll probably also, or we will post stuff in the hearsay. to
yeah,
alert.
something really bold, at least in, for today's hearsay, for instance. Whoever did the hearsay said that our meeting starts at 7 o'clock, so they had gotten. Just shows people are a little out of touch on it, so let's, so since we're moving the day and the time, let's,
Yes.
let's put something in.
No, I think the day is the same, right?
No, the day is the same. It's still the third
Yeah,
Wednesday.
we're
We
sticking with
tried.
Oh, I know,
Remember Tuesday, they have training at the firehouse?
yeah, I didn't mean that, I
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
mean the day, I meant the location.
Yeah, the time.
The location and time, yeah.
Location and time, so it won't be at this location anymore, that should be highlighted also.
Yes.
Okay.
I noticed one thing, Jack, I was perusing some of our resolutions this weekend and I saw that there was a resolution 545 establishing our 7:30 PM start time. Do we need a resolution to change the start time or is it sort of been established because we voted on it last meeting? Any ideas there?
I know that we voted to do it, but,
Yeah.
Georgia, do you have,
I don't know. I wasn't aware of that resolution. Which one is it? Number,
545.
what year was it? Did you
I'm
see?
gonna pull it up right now. Let's see. Establishing a year-round meeting start time of 7:30 PM for all regular monthly meetings of the BPUD Board of Directors. That is March 2007. So it looks like they used to start at 7:30 during the winter and 8 o'clock during the spring, summer sort of thing. But then they just decided to consolidate and make it 7:30 always.
sounds like we should then have a resolution that amends that one.
Okay,
So why don't we put that on, I mean, we're gonna go ahead and do our new place and time,
Make it official.
but put that resolution. Yeah,
Okay.
so what was the number?
That was
545?
545.
So we'll have a amendment to 545
okay.
and then.
Will be a new resolution, right? That, is that what it is? A new resolution that updates that resolution?
I guess that's how we do it, huh? A resolution that amends a prior one.
I think that's how it goes.
So-
Yeah,
Yeah, sorry, I only noticed.
Yes, that's how you do it.
yeah, okay, so we'll do it for the time and the place.
Yeah, I think it makes sense, but we'll just bring that forward to just kind of cross our i's and dot our t's.
That's
Yeah.
it, that's it.
Sorry, I didn't notice it till after the agenda was published, so
Oh.
otherwise I would.
That's all right. Okay, item 19, approval of public notice regarding upcoming fuel reduction project in the eucalyptus grove on district property.
Yeah,
What-
19, sorry, let me just.
Do we have
get
that
there.
notice?
Yes, we have the notice.
I saw it in the hearsay.
Yeah, and so, this is the notice of exemption.
Exemption.
That's their, CEQA
Right,
related to the project. But then if you go to the third page in your binder there, Jack, you'll see the actual, posting. And I didn't realize that they'd posted it already. I told them that we were gonna approve it, so sorry about that. But basically, we're bringing this forward if in case you guys wanted any language modified.
okay,
I'm looking at it.
Yeah, me too.
I
And
just,
just to let the public know, in case they have no idea what we're talking about, this is a grant which the Bolinas Fire Department applied for and received from PG&E to essentially do fire fuel reduction. But within, I think it's like 50 feet of existing PG&E power lines. So it's pretty limited in scope and it's not a ton of money. And it doesn't unfortunately allow for debris, large log removal or anything like that. But there are potentially some small ukes that are, deemed to be kind of posing a fire fuel risk that would potentially come down with the project. So anyways, that's what's
Okay.
happening.
so the item is on our agenda to give notice to the public that there is this notice of exemption then. right?
Yes, I think they already did that in their meeting. We're
Yeah.
not doing the kind of public duty of notice of exemption here in our meeting.
Okay,
They've done that in theirs.
Okay.
They were just essentially sharing with us what the CEQA notice of exemption was. I effectively requested that, as Dave was pointing out, it's like there's a lot of overlapping work related to management of that property, whether it's us or Beth, or so it's just useful for us to see what these notice of exemptions look like. Related to, you know, debris removal in there, so.
okay.
Question about this project and how it relates to the bike path. The bike path is still closed, correct?
Yeah, it's still closed.
Will this project clear the bike path so we can reopen it or no?
No, unfortunately, like I was saying, there's several large trees that are encumbering the bike path right now. And those need to be, you know, they need to be cut up. And then I think, yeah, the issue of whether the bike path gets like, you know, reopened, I'm basically looking for advice on how we should manage that, you know. Now, but it's effectively officially closed still. Through a notice that went out, I don't even know, I was just looking at it the other day, but I think it was. January 23, around there.
Yeah,
And it's a still of, you know, essentially it says it's closed indefinitely or upon until further notice.
mhm.
And we've never given that further notice that it's opened. But you know, whether people still appreciate that it's closed this long after, like I don't, you know, again, I'm kind of trying to seek advice as to how to handle that situation.
Just refresh my memory. Do we need a permit to clear the bike path, to clear those down trees, or what's the holdup to clearing the path?
I think it's yeah, related to effectively management of the property and just basically getting word that we can actually clear the path.
Okay. I mean,
Word from who? From us?
yeah, I'd love to get it cleared as soon as possible.
Okay,
Um,
well, I'll work on it.
I mean, is it a funding problem? I mean, we have budget for down trees, and I don't know if we've already used that up with the Arroyo Hondo work we did earlier this year, so I mean, if it's just a matter of money, let's get or if it's more like we don't want people walking on that path because of the nature of the grove, then that's one thing, but if it's just, you
In
know,
the way.
if it's just a couple trees in the way, they're down, then let's cut them up and
Okay.
get the path open.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that I've talked to Jennifer about recently, and recognition, it's just more of issue of, you know, why is the path closed? Is it because of those trees that are in the way? Or is it another, you know, a kind of broader issue?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's,
Okay.
you know, I think right now they kind of serve a purpose of, yeah, the path is closed and it's obviously closed because you can't get through the whole thing.
Yeah.
And so I just want to be really careful about how we approach it and just, you know, not just kind of be like, oh, the path is closed, but we just cleared it. So that's kind of inviting people to, oh, the path is open, even though it's actually closed. You know, I don't want to give like mixed signals, and I just want to be really intentional about how we approach that property, and basically whether we effectively kind of send signals welcoming people into it versus, I mean, right now, again, like I said, the last message that we disseminated to the public was that the path is closed.
Yeah, I think it's worth continuing to send that message out, at least from the corner of Lima Bolinas and Mesa. You know, the yellow tape has been pushed to the side and it looks open. I think the sign is pretty old and weather beaten, so I think people use the path as it is. So if we really don't want them using it, then we should just keep putting the word out and, you know, try to cordon it off better.
Mhm.
My parents walked down it unknowingly, and they had, you know, they scampered over the logs and because they didn't know it was closed, so
Mhm.
I don't know. Yeah, if we're gonna keep it closed, let's keep it closed properly, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
and let
Mhm.
people know.
All right.
All right,
Okay, I'm gonna move on to the next section,
Do
but
we need to
approve the public notice.
take action on that?
which one?
Number 19.
No,
I mean, I put it on there because I was expecting you guys to approve the language, but again, it's already been published, so
Yeah.
it's sort of like a fait accompli, so it kind of is more of a matter of whether you guys wanna kind of just kind of give it your stamp of
Well, we
approval
could
after the
vote to
fact.
approve. It's another agency that actually puts up the notice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
except
right.
it's coming from all of us, like you see our little emblem down there, so the
Oh,
the
okay.
notice is coming from all of us, it's their, project, but
Yeah.
they, we essentially think of it as a cooperative. And they shared this with us to say, are you
Okay.
comfortable with this
Let's
language?
do it then. Yeah, all right, can I get a motion then to approve the notice of exemption?
I make that motion.
Oh, sorry, it's not the notice of exemption that you
It's
guys are approving.
the approval of
Public
public
notice.
notice.
Yes,
Yes.
Oh, okay,
sorry,
The
that was
other-
confusing.
The other 19 is, yeah,
I move to approve the public notice regarding the fuel reduction project in the eucalyptus grove on Beat District property.
okay, is there a second?
I second, I have one comment about the language.
Okay,
Because it does say near the bottom, this project is expected to last between 2 and 4 weeks, and the walking path will be closed during the project
Yeah.
work period, so that's why I found it a little confusing, I was wondering if the footpath is.
Yeah, and that's what prompted me to look into all
Okay.
of it, was that line there, and I didn't realize that, sorry that got miscommunicated, but I was expecting
It's okay.
at this meeting, and then I was gonna, request that we probably clean up that language as like, is continuing to,
Yeah.
is still closed or whatever it looks like, cause it sounds like it's reopening.
so what do you want to do about that language?
Yeah, I would change it to clean it up to make it more accurate, I mean, it's a true statement, but it doesn't fully capture the nature of the footpath at the moment, so,
What you
What can we
propose?
say? Yeah, let's see.
Revision,
yeah, I haven't fully formed this yet, let's see. Walking path will continue to be closed.
You can say remain closed.
Yeah.
Will remain closed during the project, and the remain closed period. Or during the project work period.
Yeah, I mean, I can basically wordsmith it, to describe your intention.
To reflect the fact that the walking
Yeah,
path
I
has
mean, I
been
think it's
closed.
a
and-
little bit, complicated, and basically I'm, like I said, seeking advice as to how we're handling that, and I just really don't wanna decide right here and have you know what I mean, it just makes more sense for, I think, for us to, obviously understand your intention, and I already noted that
Mhm.
language as problematic, and so basically I'll go back, and talk to George about amending that language and that request that they put out a further.
How about this? Go ahead, do you have?
I was just gonna say, why don't we have the motion subject to final language being approved by the general manager?
Yeah.
In consultation with the fire department.
I would say just tack on a little. Portion of a sentence, whatever that word is, at the end. The project is expected to last between 2 and 4 weeks, comma.
Period.
Strike that and the walking path will be closed during the project work period, comma. And will continue to be closed for the foreseeable and will remain closed for the foreseeable future.
And
Is
take
that-
temporary trail closure off of the community notice up top.
Yeah,
Temporary trail closure.
Right, I think the word remain closed is your
And
key,
will remain
Yeah.
closed.
so there's
For
no
the-
inference that it's open now.
It could also
I
just
think
be-
it'd say it closed until further notice.
It could also just be 2 sentences. It could say the project is expected to last between 2 and 4 weeks, period.
Mhm.
And then say the project or the path has been closed since
The storm.
January.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually an
2023,
opportunity to reiterate what our message is
will-
around that.
And
Yeah.
will only reopen upon approval of,
Yeah,
something like
will
that.
be,
Just,
public
yeah,
will be
remain
informed
closed.
when
Public
the
will
path
remain
is
closed.
reopened.
Remain closed for the foreseeable future. Okay, yeah, I trust you to get that right. Sounds like you're already thinking about it, so
Yeah.
I would.
And the temporary trail closure, that was obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
temporary,
We all pounced on this.
yes.
Right, so Andrew, you're agreeable to the amendment to your.
Yeah,
motion?
yeah, I move to approve the notice with the language to be revised per our conversation about temporary closure versus the continued closure.
Mhm.
Okay. You second,
And I
it.
second it, yeah.
Okay, all in favor?
All right.
Aye. 3-0.
And now, Jack, do we need to approve something for 18 about the regular meeting? I mean, I know we don't have a resolution, but do we need to take another vote? Georgia, are you looking for a vote about that or?
I think we decided to put a
resolution.
resolution on our next agenda.
Okay.
yeah, we'll say no vote for that one for item 18. You guys did not take a vote, but we will put a resolution on for next.
Yeah, I thought we had
I
actually
think-
we voted already to do those things,
I
didn't
think we
we?
did. I think we did.
I
Yeah,
think you
but
guys,
now that you found a resolution, I think to really,
probably it wasn't appropriate to have voted on that without having just brought a resolution for it and adopted it.
okay. Well,
I
in
mean,
any event, we're
presumably
gonna
you guys do
agendize
that for-
a new resolution that will modify the prior one. So,
okay,
but in the meantime, we're gonna do it at our new time and our new place. So, yeah.
sounds good.
Okay, it's us to budgetary / financial resolutions and approvals. The first one is resolution 727, approval of fiscal year 24-25 district budget. And we've already had a public hearing in which members of the public were given the opportunity to comment on that budget. I don't know that we've got any responses.
We did
And-
not,
No.
we did not.
So resolution 727 is the board's acceptance of that budget and approving it for the next fiscal year. Can I get a motion to approve resolution 727?
I so move.
Is there a second?
I second, I have one just typo to correct.
Sure, go for it.
On the date that it was passed today, it says 2023, so it should be 2024.
Good point, good call.
Oh, yeah, and maybe there's a space between the 1 and the 7 of 17.
The 17th day of July, well, that part, yeah,
Yeah.
it should be July 24, correct?
Yeah,
Okay,
Okay, sorry, oh, one word, sorry,
yeah, just on the.
July 2024,
2024,
and then there should be a space between 17 and no space there,
No
okay?
space, yeah.
yeah,
Um,
but I don't mind just making changing it by hand if you want. Or I can come in some other time to do a revised.
I think it's probably fine to just change it by hand.
Okay,
I mean, maybe don't point out the no space,
no,
Yeah.
that doesn't bother me. Okay,
more.
all right, so
My own-
did we just vote on this? Or just-
we have a motion and a. second.
Yeah, I'll
Yeah,
make the
Andrew.
motion with the adjustment from 2023 to 2024.
Okay,
And I second.
second it, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And it takes us to resolution 728, approval of district's rates and charges for fiscal 24-25. And in this one, based on the budget that we just approved, we are increasing our rates on water and sewer charges. And those have also had a public hearing, inviting public to comment on those changes, and I don't believe we got any response to that. And so, without going through all the details of it, do we have a motion to approve resolution 728?
I so move.
There's that same space.
Is it?
Yeah, but this time July is right.
I have another typo. On page 2 at the very top.
Yeah.
It says BPUD resolution number 712, it says 728,
Oh, this is, yeah,
Yeah,
because it replaces 7.
yeah. That's right,
Good catch.
728. All right. So with that correction to the document, can I get a motion to approve resolution 728?
Yep, I so move with the correction.
Okay,
I will second.
all in
And
favor?
I have a little discussion actually,
Oh, okay, well, before I take the vote, then
Yeah,
let's do it.
if you don't mind.
No, not at all.
Let me just read my notes here quickly.
Sure.
So I realize this is too late now, and it's part of it'll be part of the discussion for the finance committee and the budget next year. There's something we brought up a month or two ago at a meeting, which is I asked the question why we haven't changed the tiered metered rates, and I looked into it a little bit. So these are listed here on resolution 728 B quarterly metered water delivery charges.
Mhm.
And I looked into this a little bit. This is what got me looking through past resolutions. I wanted to see how long these rates have been in place. It turns out that they have been in place at these rates for 15 years, since 2009, resolution 581.
Bobby Kimball, sort of Bobby Kimball.
Yeah,
So whereas these rates have stayed the same for 15 years, our base water and sewer charges have gone up about 80% each, or roughly $800 per connection per year. That's how much they've gone up over the last, sorry, I calculated this for the last 10 years. I just went back 10 years to see how much they've changed. So in the last 10 years, they've changed about 80%, whereas the tiered meter rates haven't changed at all. In fact, they haven't changed in 15 years. So I sort of did some quick back of the envelope calculations to see how much we could be charging our customers. Not that I'm trying to charge our customers more money, but just based on the fact that our expenses are going up, our employee expenses are going up. We have a new employee. I just wanted to look at, how we're figuring out what we're charging our customers. So back of the envelope, if our quarterly metered rates had increased at the same rates as our base water charges and base sewer charges, roughly 80% over the last 10 years, we're talking about $85,000 per year that we are not earning. So I just want to bring that to your attention as something that I think should be discussed for the next go round. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Kirsten brought this up at the very end of our.
Yeah, it was
last
it was brought up, but it was brought up too late in
Okay.
the sort of budget discussions.
It's totally on the table.
But it
for
was,
next year.
yeah, definitely discussed.
Okay.
I mean, I think just to kind of expand upon what you're saying, while it's true, that you could say, oh, our base rates went up 80% over the same period. Why did our other ones stay stagnant? I think it would be meaningful to look at other water districts and look at what they're doing, because maybe their base rates really didn't go up 80%, and it was more a conscientious choice of, hey, let's really increase our kind of yearly income by putting that on base rates and keeping and I mean, again, I'm not saying this, but I'm just, as we discuss this, I think the issue is more complicated, as Andrew and I and Kirsten, like when Kirsten pointed this out, I think both Andrew and I, our instinct was be like, yeah, that doesn't make any sense. Why wouldn't we just, kind of across the board have done this? And right off the bat, like Jennifer was bringing up just like a couple of reasons off the top of her head why it's not, necessarily best practice.
No.
And so it's, just to contextualize some of the things that you threw out there.
And I'm not arguing for an across the board increase of 80%, by the way. I just wanted to just start to look into it a little bit so I could, just kind of get a handle on it, because I know, money's tight and expenses are up. So I just want to make sure our revenues are keeping pace. So I just thought this was one way we could. Gonna say something else about that, but now I forgot.
It's interesting because if we were like in San Francisco, we would just get a water bill and we would see the amount, right? But it's because the county basically takes our big water bills through their property tax. We have these small bills,
Very tiny,
right?
yeah.
Every quarter.
I mean, the average water bill is probably $4 or $8 a quarter.
Yeah, and
right?
so what we started talking about is like, would it make more of a impact on the customers to get a bigger bill every quarter or every, whenever we issue the bill?
Or at least show it as a line item saying, this has been paid as part of your practice. So
Sure. Yeah, you've paid $1,800 for your water connection this year.
Yeah. So, per quarter, that's $450.
Yeah.
So that's the real cost of delivering the water. So that's sort of something I've been thinking about for a long time in town, is some people who get their water bills for $4 actually think that that's the cost of us delivering water to them.
Yeah.
They don't actually, literally I've had this conversation. They don't actually realize that there's a much larger true cost of delivering the water, which is paid for in the property taxes. So you know, a $4 bill is pretty
Yeah.
tiny.
That was.
But people love us because of our $4.
Our
Yeah.
tank water,
It's the only reason.
Yeah.
people love us.
Well, that was done for that purpose, so that the district had a guarantee. On doing a budget with a projected revenue, because we knew how much each service charge was gonna generate in terms of a fee. Rather than depend on selling water and
Mhm.
making your budget.
Yeah.
Contingent too much on the revenue.
Yeah.
Especially when you have drought years, when people start using less water. So you're selling less water and suddenly your budget gets screwed up.
yeah,
Because you're not getting your money. So it was a conscious decision a long time
Yeah.
ago.
Mhm.
Yeah.
To go that way.
yeah,
On the other hand, as Bobby Kimball pointed out some years ago, it's almost embarrassing to get a bill for $3, you know? And it seemed like there ought to be at least a threshold, a minimum that everybody should be paying. Regardless of how much you use, and that got us started on creating these tiers, so
Got
that
it.
the bigger users had to pay more and like that, but I do think you guys should revisit that. And
Mhm.
So that 2009 resolution that established these metered charges, there wasn't anything before that?
no, there was.
no, we just increased the
That
rate.
increase, yeah.
Yeah, and created, a more expensive, we made water more expensive for the big users.
Yeah.
So, but still didn't want to punish people too much by making them pay more when they were conserving, you know?
Yeah.
And we wanted to
Well,
reward.
that's the thing, you know, as our customers conserve more water, which we want them to do, we are making less money, you know, but our operation costs remain more or less the same,
Yeah.
even if we're generating less, you know, producing less water
Yeah,
for our customers. So, you know, just all things that we can discuss.
yeah. Anyway, that's why I got tacked onto the charge for the service rather than the water being
Yeah,
used,
Just to
yeah.
make it a
Because
consistent.
it does,
Yeah.
there is a fixed cost regardless of whether any particular customer uses more or less water. It's costing us the same amount to produce that water. So,
Well, by the way, just to be clear, so this sort of $4 a month, is it $4 a month or $4 a quarter? I think maybe it's $4 a month. Yeah, sorry. The $12 quarter, that's the sort of average bill around town for a connection.
yeah,
If we'd raise the rates commensurate with, you know, raising the water connection fee and the sewer connection fee roughly 80% over the last 10 years, that would now be $21.60 a quarter or $7.20 a month. So we're talking about $4 a month versus $7.20 a month. So
Yeah.
it's still pretty minimal, and I
Yeah.
think, you know, it's probably less than inflation and
Yeah.
all these things. So
Yeah.
anyway,
yeah, but yeah, it's good material to work out for your next,
yeah.
budget.
And I think it's great.
Yeah,
I already have some ideas.
I'd say one more question about the tiered and how they're measured, Georgia. Maybe you can speak to this, and pardon my ignorance here, but you don't start at 0. You start tier 1 is from 100 to 1500. So why don't you start from 0? And then do you only second question is, do you only measure them in 100 in hundreds? Because is there no 1550? You sort of jump from 1500 to 1600 at tier 2. So I'm just, you know, again, pardon my ignorance.
I think that if Bell is still there.
Yeah.
Probably better equipped to.
Do
ask
we just
you.
round up or down to the nearest hundred?
Because of, I don't know why it was set up that way, but the billing structure is set up to round to the nearest 100, either up or down. And so we just start with 100 is $1, 200 is $2, and we don't get into the change. So if
Okay.
somebody uses under 100 cubic feet, which is like 7 gallons, 7.5 gallons, then, or a little more than that, but then they don't pay anything if it's under 100. But so
Mhm. Yeah, it's just kind of a misnomer of how this is described, I would say, right? Because at some level, I mean, I guess you could infer what Bella's saying here, but
Yeah,
it does seem weird to describe it this way.
yeah,
Like 0 to 1600 would be kind of,
that's
well,
why
I guess it's 0 to 1550 or something.
yeah,
it's 0 to 1500 is $1 per 100 cubic
Yeah.
feet,
yeah.
and then
But in in reality, Bell, what happens if somebody uses 1550, where do they go?
we get the meter readings, and they have the last 2 digits on the end of the reading, and we just zero those out. So even if their last two digits are 58, and then the next two digits, the next quarter are, 29, we just 0, 0. So it's always a round number
Hmm,
for the billing purposes.
okay.
Does that make sense?
I mean, it doesn't make rational sense, but it makes sense as like, that's what we do.
For bookkeeping purposes,
Yeah.
yeah, you're not messing with the change, as she
But
said.
it's
Yeah.
like, if somebody uses 1599, you're like, that's,
It-
1500 rather than 1600 seems weird.
Yeah, I mean, usually we zero it, so it gets caught up eventually, but yeah, I mean, they do maybe save $1 during that quarter, but then it adds into their next quarter,
Okay,
Alright.
and it's a little bit clunky.
sounds like you got it down, so,
Yeah.
It evens out.
all right, those are the only comments I had.
So did we vote or not on resolution 728?
We did not.
Okay, any other
You guys were
questions,
just having
comments?
discussion.
1 second.
Okay,
Yeah, no other discussion for me.
okay, so then I'll call the question for resolution 728, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 3-0. Takes us to the next category, legislative resolutions and approvals. Item 22 on our agenda is resolution 729. Approval of the local hazard mitigation plan. And the resolution actually is addressed to the,
Oh, sorry.
shall we annex the BPUD's annex to the 2024 Marin County multi-jurisdictional local hazard mitigation plan. So do you want to summarize what that annex is?
Yeah, so basically it's just language that describes us as an entity within the Marin County's local hazard mitigation plan. We basically got, as a special district, got enfolded into their like overall plan. And so, throughout that document, once that became like, formalized and they agreed to take us, we basically are referred to as the BCPUD Annex.
Oh, got it.
And so
Okay,
that's what that language is about, but basically this is a kind of, legislative requirement for you guys, for us to be, formally kind of, accepted into the local hazard mitigation plan, which allows us to ultimately like receive FEMA funding should we, experience a designated federal disaster. And so there's the staff report, which, essentially was a template that was shared with me by the Office of Emergency Management of Marin County that said, hey, you need to go do this at your board meeting so that all of this work that Jennifer did to actually get us incorporated into the plan is formalized, and we actually are, part of the plan.
okay.
So that's the BCPUD staff report that, describes that process. And what we're doing, and then the draft resolution is the meat of it, where that's what you guys are actually adopting tonight. And allows us to be formalized.
Okay, so I would suggest then well, then that's it, and we would just need a motion to approve resolution 729.
I have just one very strange question. The first, like the title of the resolution on the draft resolution number 729, there's like 4 words that aren't in bold. Is there any significance to that?
BPUD annex to
Oh,
the,
it's probably because it's like, the template language,
Okay,
but I can
oh, I get
fix
that.
that.
it doesn't really matter. I just didn't know if there's some significance to the way the thing is broken up.
No, it's probably, sorry, I just overlooked the fact that that was not bolded and it was, not sure why it didn't get bolded, but
Otherwise,
they essentially made it very easy for you and highlighted portions where it's like, change this language. So probably where they had put in that, the text was different.
Okay,
All right.
is it too late to make any minor changes to the annex?
What do
They've
you
been
got in
done?
mind?
What do you mean by
Well-
the annex?
Oh, the BPUD annex, so the BPUD. Well, what we're approving tonight is this whole, it was it's a like 113 page.
Oh, yeah, it's a living, breathing document. So
Okay.
basically changes need to occur to it as it goes. And the idea was essentially we brought amendments forward to the county representatives that are working on this. And essentially, you know, we agreed that we didn't want to like slow this process down and we can continue to provide amendments to them. Mind you, we want to be like, I think, you know, they have this, you know, you can see how long ours is, so they're responsible for all of these, so I
Yeah.
didn't wanna like. Weigh them down with, you know, like. You know, our maps aren't quite right, they're not identifying, you know, so it's just be sensitive, so if it's pretty minor, I would say. It's probably not worth it, but if it's something that you're like, this is really not captured something, then. I can basically request that they amend it.
Okay, well, Jennifer's listed as the sort of primary point of contact, and I
Okay.
think that's because she was instrumental in getting this done, but I just thought that you should probably be the primary point of contact. I don't know if your phone number is the same as hers or what, but,
Yeah, I will, yeah, and those are the types of things where, yes, it's like I said, a living, breathing document and it should be continually updated.
okay, yeah, I don't think I have any major edits then.
Okay, and yes, I will, and just to let you know, I mean, the maps are definitely not accurate. Portions of what, you know, we have to identify our infrastructure or major infrastructure there, and those are kind of off, and so eventually those will be amended, but they're not, you know. They're not too far off, but I think, yeah, requesting that I be listed as the primary point of contact would make sense. So thanks for pointing that out.
Okay.
I got one typo,
Okay,
resolution or the draft resolution, the second to last paragraph. Hereby.
Herbie.
missing
Herbie. Good old Herbie.
Herbie Hancock.
Okay,
Okay,
The document also mentions the gas station as being, you know, a threat. I forget in which section, maybe sea level rise or something, but is it worth pointing out to them that the gas station is permanently closed as of, was that this year or last year? When did it close?
I think it closed
2023?
2022, yeah.
okay,
but that doesn't require us to change the resolution. does it?
no,
No.
that's where I'm saying, she said just go and pass the resolution and we can.
Okay, great.
Okay. Okay. Have we already made a motion then to pass resolution 729?
I don't think we have.
I would move to pass resolution 729 with the minor edit
Okay,
as discussed.
Herbie,
Herbie,
I second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 3-0. Okay, items 23, 24, and 25 on our agenda have nothing after them, so I'm gonna skip those. And we're going on to approval of minutes, which is starting with item 26. It says May 17th regular board meeting, but I think the minutes themselves say May 15th.
Yeah, that's right. May 15th.
Okay, so
So,
that's just a typo in the agenda.
Yeah,
right,
And I'm sorry, I don't have the minutes in my.
So-
If you guys have questions.
I like the format. I like the YouTube link and the timestamps. I clicked on the YouTube link to check it out. The video is very blurry. The audio was good, but the video was very blurry. So I don't know if that's something we could work on, but overall, I like the format. Definitely more compact than I'm used to seeing, which I think, you know, the trade-off that we've been talking about, it's less staff time, but then less detail, you know, for the record.
Yeah.
But if that's the trade-off, then I'm happy with it.
I thought it's still satisfied the need to substantively summarize what's said on each subject, which is the purpose of the minutes at the end of the day. So I agree. I like the format and
Is this an Otter AI generated?
It's Otter AI generated. It basically meaning Bell has takes the audio from the Zoom recording, passes it through Otter, generates the notes, but then there's still substantial cleanup of those notes. So I'm not sure, I haven't asked her like how much time that is and if it's kind of getting, I mean, the idea is trying to streamline that again as much as possible and, you know, essentially put these timestamps that allow people to, if they want the further details, then that's archived through the video.
Yeah,
yeah.
I think it's great.
It still took probably about 4 hours. I didn't, maybe a little less than that, but just because I have to go through it and kind of, you know, type it up and make sure I'm summarizing it and clean it up and put timestamps in and blah, blah. But much, you know, it'll probably get faster as I go. I didn't do the June ones because I just wanted to make sure you guys were okay with this format. And I hadn't had time also.
I like the format.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, you're getting good response. Okay, well,
Okay.
we do, and well, let's start with the May 17th. There aren't any for June yet. So does anybody have any corrections or changes that you want to make to these minutes?
Not that
And-
I do not.
I don't
Okay,
either, no.
and if there are none, can I get a motion to approve them?
I so move.
I will second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 3-0. So that was for the May 15th minutes and there are none for June. Is that correct?
No,
Okay,
next time.
right. So we'll move on to item 28, which is the warrants. And we do have a list of all the warrants. Dated July 10th. Anybody have any questions or comments?
I have a few questions.
Sure.
County of Marin solid waste facility fee, 2,200. What is that?
That is resource recovery fee.
Okay, it's like a yearly fee.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Richards, Watson, and Gershon, 24,000 plus.
That's a payment back to April 2022 for 100 Brighton. Payments back to April 2022 for 100 Brighton. That's a kind of note that where,
Do you want me to explain it?
yes, Belle,
I
please.
think we get reimbursed for that, right?
Yeah, I mean, basically it was that there was, until the whole legal thing hadn't gotten figured out, they were sort of holding invoices for some time. The AMJT folks at 100 Brighton needed to pay, they were kind of fronting us the money or giving us the money to pay for the legal costs. And so they held all of those invoices for quite a long time. And then finally everything kind of got figured out and we got our check from AMJT. And so we paid those legal costs.
But that was, yeah, basically paid for, so.
So it was reimbursed or,
Yeah, it was kind of a
Okay.
flow through.
okay, great.
Yeah. Any other?
And one more, SUSP, that's the, I thought since Stu got a certification that we wouldn't be paying that any longer. Is that a contract we have that goes for a year or something? Do you know?
No, you won't probably see it next time, right, Belle?
Okay.
Yeah. So that was just basically the last invoice. I think we went into like a week into July or something like that before everything got finalized. So
Yeah, we were
I don't know
basically-
if they'll bill us for that, but
Okay.
Yeah, we were waiting for essentially confirmation from the regulator, and then it just took a little while to essentially receive their formalized letter approving it.
Okay, great. That's
How about you, Andrew? Any questions?
No. No.
Okay. So can I get a motion to approve the warrants?
I moved to approve the warrants.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 3-0. We come to the conclusion of the agenda. I have some materials to be signed and onto those. And I think we already talked about the future agenda items, which is a resolution to amend that prior resolution, and we're continuing a couple of the matters that we had on our agenda concerning the eucalyptus and the bike path. Are there any other particular agenda items that you guys can think of? Otherwise, I think,
Yeah, I mean, you guys mentioned several that I've already been tracking,
Just.
but if you have additional ones.
those are the only that I can think of. Okay,
No, I don't have any. for-
and then don't we usually put something at the end that says, next, meeting date?
Yeah, we should have that
Okay.
for adjournment.
So
15th,
that would be.
August 15th.
It's still a Wednesday though, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry,
So it'd be the
21st.
21st.
No, yeah. do that.
Right, we're still meeting on Wednesdays, right?
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah,
gonna be-
yeah, it's the
So
21st.
it's gonna be the 21st, but at 6 o'clock at the firehouse.
Okay, it's exciting.
It sure is. Okay, and with that, this meeting is adjourned.
Very
Thank you,
good.
Jack. Thanks, Georgia.
Yeah, thank you
Yeah,
guys.
thank you, Val.
Thank you, Belle.